One of the most powerful realizations a person can have is that the body and brain are not separate entities. They are one continuous system. What you do with your body directly shapes your brain's ability to process information, make decisions, and adapt to stress. And the inverse is equally true. The thoughts and emotions you engage in regulate the physiology of your entire body. Every single day, there are 9 core areas that determine whether your system, your brain, body circuit is optimized or left to decay. These aren't hacks, they're not shortcuts. They are foundational practices rooted in physiology, neuroscience, and decades of empirical data. If you work on these 9 elements daily, your baseline of performance, your capacity for resilience, your clarity of thought, and even your relationships will all recalibrate upward. Start with your sleep. Your circadian rhythm is the master clock, governing everything from hormone output to cognitive sharpness to emotional stability. When you wake up, expose your eyes to sunlight within the first 30 to 60 minutes if possible. That light hits melanops, in containing retinal ganglion cells, signaling the suprachiasmatic nucleus of your hypothalamus to begin the process of cortisol release, which sets your wakefulness signal for the day. The same exposure also sets a timer for the onset of melatonin 12 to 16 hours later. Without anchoring your sleep-wake cycle in this way, you are compromising nearly every other domain of your life, and it's not just about when you go to bed. It's how consistent your wake time is. Even on weekends, even on days off, this one behavior cascades into better mood regulation, sharper memory, and improved immune function. You must treat your sleep like it's a sacred practice because in many ways it is. It is not recovery, it is preparation. Second, control your autonomic nervous system. Most people exist in a low-grade, perpetual state of sympathetic arousal. That is, they're stressed even when they don't think they are. Your ability to regulate your stress response determines how well you think under pressure, how quickly you recover, and how often your immune system becomes compromised. Use deliberate physiological sighs, 2 short inhales through the nose followed by a long exhale through the mouth, to rapidly downshift into parasympathetic mode. Just 1 to 3 cycles can significantly reduce levels of circulating adrenaline. It's accessible, fast, and deeply rooted in the science of respiration and vagus nerve stimulation. When done regularly, it trains your brain to recognize calmness not as a foreign state, but as the default. Pair this with regular periods of non-sleep deep rest or NSDR, short intervals where the mind is neither fully asleep nor fully alert. These practices restore dopamine and replenish mental energy, helping you return to tasks with greater focus and drive. Third, movement not just for fitness, but for brain function. Movement is neurochemistry. When you engage in physical activity, particularly resistance training or cardiovascular exercise, you're not just working your muscles. You're regulating BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is essential for neuroplasticity. You're enhancing blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, which improves executive function. Even 20 minutes of moderate intensity walking can dramatically increase the availability of neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. And if you can, train early in the day. Morning movement accelerates the alignment of your circadian rhythm and primes your system for the cognitive demands ahead. Think of movement as your first cup of coffee, but with long, lasting benefits. If you're not moving, you're stagnating, and stagnation is the precursor to decay, cognitively, emotionally, physically. Fourth, nutrition, not as a moral stance, not as a restrictive dogma, but as a way of engineering neurotransmitter availability and stabilizing your energy system. The timing and content of your meals modulate insulin sensitivity, dopamine output, and inflammation. If you want to maximize alertness and focus early in the day, reduce your carbohydrate intake during your first meal. Lean protein, healthy fats, and fibrous vegetables support sustained energy without the blood sugar spike crash cycle. Later in the day, you can bring in more carbohydrates, which increase tryptophan transport across the blood-brain barrier, facilitating serotonin and melatonin synthesis, priming your body for rest. But it's not just what you eat. It's how you eat. Slow down, engage in parasympathetic digestion, chew thoroughly, taste. These are not trivialities. These are ways of accessing better nutrient absorption, reduced cortisol, and improved gut-brain axis signaling. Food is not just fuel, it's information, and your cells are always listening. The fifth is visual system regulation. Your eyes are not just passive cameras. They are extensions of your brain, literally. When you control your visual aperture, meaning the size of your field of vision, you influence your level of internal arousal. Tunnel vision, which happens under stress, feeds back into the brain to maintain a state of threat. On the other hand, panoramic vision, softening your gaze and widening your visual field, activates the parasympathetic nervous system, reducing internal friction and promoting calm. Practice this throughout the day. While walking, while transitioning between tasks, while experiencing conflict, use your visual system as a tool, not just an input mechanism. When you own your gaze, you own your state. And when you own your state, you regain sovereignty over your behavior. Next is deliberate focus. Your ability to focus is not a static trait. It is trainable. It is sculpted by what you pay attention to and how long you maintain that attention. Start with one deeply focused block of work per day. Eliminate distractions. Work in 90-minute ultradian cycles. These mirror natural shifts in brain activity. During these windows, engage in goal-directed behavior. When your mind wanders, gently bring it back. This activates the frontal, parietal attentional network and strengthens neural pathways responsible for concentration. Afterward, take a break. Engage in something passive, even boring. Let your brain default into the so-called default mode network, a state correlated with memory consolidation, creativity, and emotional processing. Focus and rest are not opposites, they are a binary system. One potentiates the other. Train both. The seventh is your relationship with discomfort. Your brain is wired to avoid pain and seek pleasure, but growth, neurobiologically, requires voluntary engagement with discomfort. Whether it's physical, emotional, or cognitive, when you step toward stress voluntarily, it changes the dopamine system. It increases your baseline of motivation. It reinforces the prefrontal cortex's ability to override limbic responses. Take cold exposure, for example, 2 to 5 minutes in cold water, uncomfortable but safe, triggers a dopamine increase of 2.5x baseline, sustaining for hours afterward. That's not about masochism, that's neurochemistry. Seek micro discomforts, the difficult conversation, the extra set, the early morning, the cold shower. By doing so, you are signaling to your system that you are in control, and that belief, that sense of agency, is one of the most potent regulators of mental health and performance we know of. Then there's the cultivation of gratitude, not as a soft ideal but as a neural exercise. When you actively recall a moment when someone did something for you that benefited you and cost them something, you're not just remembering, you're re-experiencing. Functional MRI studies show that this kind of gratitude practice lights up the medial prefrontal cortex and shifts the default mode network into a state of social connection and well-being. Do this for 1 to 3 minutes per day. It's not journaling, it's embodiment. Close your eyes, recreate the scene, let yourself feel the impact. This practice doesn't just make you feel better, it recalibrates your nervous system to be more resilient to threat. It is a tool for immunizing your perception against the onslaught of negativity that your brain naturally overrepresents. And finally, the regulation of your internal narrative. Your thoughts are not random. They are conditioned loops, shaped by repetition and internal chemistry. The way you talk to yourself matters. It changes heart rate variability, modulates cortisol, and shifts the trajectory of your attention. Negative self-talk is not just psychologically toxic, it's physiologically damaging. You must intervene. When you catch yourself in a loop of self-doubt or criticism, don't resist it, replace it, use scripts. Use anchors. Use phrases that are real, believable, and actionable. Things like, I don't have to do all of it, I just have to do the next thing. Or I've done hard things before, I can do this too. Say it out loud. Let your own voice become the tuning fork of your internal system. Because the words you use to describe your experience become the frame through which your brain interprets the world. Change the language. Change the lens. Change the biology. Every one of these practices engages your system at a fundamental level. This is not about feeling good. It's about building a system that functions well under load, that repairs itself efficiently, and that remains adaptable across the unpredictable landscape of life. You are not at the mercy of your habits. You are the architect of them, and when you take responsibility for these 9 domains, not once, not when it's convenient, but daily, you align with the biology of greatness, not fleeting motivation, not inspiration, but sustained momentum rooted in the real science of change. Your body is the hardware, your brain is the operating system, and these practices, they are your code. Daily mastery of biology shapes long-term performance. The consistent regulation of sleep, movement, stress, and focus isn't optional. It is the bedrock of brain-body optimization. When these systems are intentionally calibrated each day, they create a compounding effect that improves cognitive sharpness, emotional resilience, and physical vitality. You are not at the mercy of your mind, you train it. Practices like breathwork, discomfort exposure, gratitude, and narrative control actively reshape your brain's wiring and chemistry. Through daily effort, you reprogram your nervous system to respond to life with agency, clarity, and strength, rather than reactivity or fear. Your brain and body function as a deeply interconnected system, and the foundation of high performance, mental clarity, and emotional balance lies in how well this system is managed on a daily basis. This isn't about finding motivation when you feel like it. It's about consistently mastering the biological levers that influence every other domain of life. Start with sleep, the cornerstone of your entire neurophysiological framework. When your circadian rhythm is aligned through consistent wake times, morning sunlight exposure, and proper melatonin in cycling, you experience sharper thinking, better decision-making, and more stable mood. Poor sleep does more than make you tired. It dysregulates hormones, blunts cognitive performance, and increases inflammation across the body. By anchoring your day with solid sleep hygiene, you build a baseline that supports every other habit. Movement is another pillar, but not just for physique. When you move, especially through resistance training or cardiovascular effort, you stimulate neurochemicals like dopamine, serotonin, and BDNF brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which enhance learning, memory, and motivation. Movement isn't just physical, it's cognitive conditioning. Even a short walk after a meal improves blood glucose regulation and primes the brain for sharper attention. Stress regulation is critical. Most people live in a low-grade fight-or-flight state, constantly flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. Learning to downshift your nervous system using techniques like the physiological sigh or NSDR nonce, deep rest, improves recovery and expands your stress capacity. This allows you to enter high-demand situations with greater poise, adaptability, and clarity. Each of these domains, sleep, movement, stress regulation, is a lever. When you work these levers daily, you're not just surviving the day, you're training your system for higher levels of function. They don't just affect how you feel in the moment. They determine your baseline, and your baseline determines your future. One of the most misunderstood ideas is that your thoughts are who you are. In reality, your thoughts are often conditioned patterns, Loops of language, emotion, and memory that have been rehearsed over years. The good news is, the brain is plastic, it changes, and you can change it. Let's start with narrative control. Every time you speak to yourself, consciously or unconsciously, you are wiring your brain. If your self-talk is critical, fearful, or defeatist, your nervous system enters a stress state. Your immune function decreases, your decision-making becomes reactive, and your long-term goals begin to feel impossible. But when you interrupt these loops and insert deliberate, empowering script, even something simple like, "I can handle this," or "I've done hard things before," you literally rewire your neural circuits. You shift your autonomic tone toward resilience. You become less reactive, more focused, and more capable under stress. Gratitude, when practiced correctly, is another powerful neural reconditioning tool. It's not about writing a list of nice things. It's about deeply feeling and re-experiencing a moment of sacrifice or kindness. When done right, gratitude engages areas like the medial prefrontal cortex and promotes pro-social behavior, emotional balance, and improved stress tolerance. This is not feel-good fluff. It's neurobiology, it's anti-inflammatory, it's performance-enhancing, and then there's discomfort, the ability to lean into discomfort, whether it's physical, emotional, or psychological, trains the brain's dopamine system. Dopamine is not just about reward, it's about pursuit. When you voluntarily do hard things, your baseline level of dopamine increases. This changes how motivated you feel in every other area of your life. Cold exposure, fasting, difficult conversations, challenging workouts. These are not just disciplines. They're tools for strengthening the circuitry that controls perseverance, willpower, and drive. You are not stuck. You are not static. With daily practice, you can train your brain to respond to stress with strength, to adversity with creativity, and to challenge with energy. You don't wait to feel better. You train to function better. You train to become better every single day. The pursuit of excellence is not achieved in bursts of inspiration. It's built through consistent alignment with the biological systems that govern your focus, energy, and resilience. When you take daily responsibility for your sleep, movement, breath, attention, nutrition, and mindset, you're not just optimizing your day, you're engineering your future. These aren't just routines. They're interventions. They are tools for remodeling your brain and body toward greater strength, adaptability, and clarity. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Build systems rooted in biology, refined through discipline, and aligned with purpose. That's where real momentum begins.